I have an interesting story. Honestly, I try to put it all in the past. But, yeah, it's definitely interesting there. I've watched a lot of violence growing up. I've watched a lot of abuse growing up go on in my life. The good times is what I try to remember. You know, being a little kid, running through the sanctuaries, going, just running through churches and playing around and just being a kid. Well, those were the good times, and camping and fishing and hunting with dad and hanging out with mom. And those were all fun times, but when dad was drinking and partying and whatnot, life wasn't so good. I didn't really care for it. So as I got older, honestly, I tried to find love differently. You know, I didn't. I'd make friends, but I'd have to leave friends. It was different. Started finding friends, and I was like, this is where home's gonna be, and we stayed there for a while. But in the process of staying there, the friends that I made were good people, but at the same time, we all made bad choices. You hang around the wrong crowd, drinking, smoking, partying hard, hustling, selling drugs, joining gangs, in and out of jails. Most of my friends, they went to prison, but, the drugs took over. It went from pills to, snorting them, to cooking them down, putting them in a needle, mixing it up with methamphetamine, to heroin. The pill scene went away, so heroin came into my life. And when heroin came into my life, it became a disaster. So, of course, now I don't have a job, so now I gotta find a job. And my job became what most addicts end up doing, and that's hit the streets. Everything was going good for a while, and the pill scene came in, because I broke my legs. I quit the methamphetamines, I quit drinking, I'm doing my best to quit smoking weed. Like, it was hard, it was real hard. And I'd always walk in, like, I'd smoke right before I walked in, too. And he'd be like, Davey, we're gonna have to drop a drug test on you. I'm like, why? I'm good. He's like, no, I can smell it all over you. I'm like, no, dude, no, look. You're making me quit drinking, you're making me quit doing methamphetamines, like, I quit all the hard stuff, now I gotta quit smoking weed? Like, seriously? What more do you want from me? Right, I finally quit smoking weed. And then I end up going and breaking my ankles, and now I'm put on pain pills. The pain pills turn into more pain pills after more pain pills, and my probation officer realized that this was becoming more and more of a problem. Well, casual was okay till casual became habit, and habit became getting more and more drugs, more and more drugs. By now, I've got my daughter. She's like a year old, just old enough to say, Daddy, where are you? That type of thing. Which I was coming down off of pills and drugs, so my emotions were all twisted. So I felt bad. I was like, all right, Daddy, don't worry, baby. Daddy's coming home. So I bounced out. Well, when I bounced out, they called my probation officer. So I went home, I saw my kiddo, and showed her, all kinds of love. So I went to the probation office, and when I got there, I had my daughter with me. And he's like, why do you have your daughter with you? You know you're going to jail. Well, so they brought me in, and he handcuffed me, right in front of my kiddo. She had no idea what was going on, but it hit me home. It felt bad for my daughter to watch Daddy get handcuffed, probation officer was mad. I mean, he was yelling in my ear. He was cussing me out left and right. And he locks me. I mean, he's like sent me down to the jail. And as I was driving down to the jail, I'll never forget it. I just looked up to the sky and I was like, Lord, if you get me out of this, I'll change my life around. When I got out of the Salvation Army, I called my dad and asked Dad to, what do I do? And Dad had me go to a church that we used to go to. And I'd knocked on that door. And no one answered. And I was like, all right, if you're real, Lord, because I had just left. I knew I was going away. Someone needs to answer. So I knocked again. I was like, all right. I turned around and it took off. And as I was walking away, the pastor's son opened the door. He said, what's going on? So I told him real quick this whole situation. And he's like, oh, man, yeah, so let's sit down in the church. So we went in the church. We sat down. He said a prayer, and he's like, do you know the Lord? And I was like, yeah, I know the Lord. Who don't? And he's like, no, have you asked him in your life? I was like, nah. So he led me to Christ. We said the prayer. And then the rest of that happened. Next thing you know, I'm moving into the church, living upstairs, serving the Lord strong. Where it says when the enemy, he comes back and he looks around and he sees the house all cleaned up. He comes back with 7 spirits, more stronger and evil than the last ones. Somewhere in the Bible it says that. Well, he came back with 7 strong spirits. Because I was out there serving the Lord for a few years strong. I started doing ministry. And then I fell. And when I fell, evil came with it. Heroin and meth. I would just mix them together. These, they call speedballing it. You do an upper and a downer together. That's just how it is when you're an addict. And at the time it was normal because I was high. But deep down I knew something was bad, but I couldn't pull out of it. It was so horrible. I called up Mom and said, Mom, I need a bus ticket. I need out of here. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm about to go away. And I'm over it. And she's like, okay. And mamas. Mom was like, okay, I got you, son. The mama thing got me. So she gets me a ticket, and I get to Alabama. She gets me all sobered up, cleaned up. Things are going good for me. I'm away from the crime. Okay, I'm doing better. I'm doing okay. I'm with Mama. It's all good. I start drinking, and I start drinking heavy. But I was trying to hide it because I didn't want to disappoint my mom. And so I wait and I move out of the house. And, now that I'm not in Mama's house, it sort of just went, spiral down case on the drinking part. And it wasn't but shortly later, the drugs started to come back again. And I was just like, no, I can't have this. I've got to go. I've got to. So it switched. Like, I just had enough. Like, I couldn't pull out of my alcohol stage. I couldn't pull out of it. So I finally just had it. I was just over it. So I called up my dad one day and I'm like, I need help, Dad. I was doing good with Mom and I moved out on my own and I just spiraled down and I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. Of course, he gets a ticket for me. gets me down there. By now, I'm at the stage where I just don't care anymore. I just want to be back. I just want everything to be back to normal, where I was serving the Lord and life was good, Well, the good thing is my dad was serving the Lord, and he didn't drink. So when I got there, I was like, okay, cool. All right, let's try this again. Round 2, round 2. And then it was just, Dad's like, there's a church we're going to go to. You're going to like it. The pastor's anointed. And I'm like, all right. And so I went to church, and that's when I met Pastor Scott and Steven. And so I went to that church for a while. Long story short, now things are starting to go good for me. Now I'm feeling the presence of God. I'm like, wow, I ain't felt this in a long time, And then I meet Henry and Neildra, and they get me to go up front. And now I'm going up front, and I'm starting, things are starting to come back to me. Remembrance of when I used to serve the Lord. Back to journaling almost immediately. I went to writing down, thoughts and scripture and a lot of reading. I love reading the Bible. It's one of my favorite things to do. You get to a certain point in your walk or in your life where it's like, do I keep going down the path that I'm going down, or or do I find something better? And that's where I was at. I was just like, I was at the crossroads, Do I go to prison or die from an overdose, or do I run away again, and hopefully this spot that I'm going to, where my dad's at, is it gonna work, Now we're at Eastwood Springs Church, and being there has been such a blessing. The whole body of Christ there has come together, and they've helped me. They've showed me love. They've been a positive influence in my life, and it helps me stay on track. A lot of good things have happened. I was coming up, I do a lot of praying at church. I haven't done that much lately, but I was doing a lot of it. Praying for the body and making sure, my favorite thing to do is ask the Lord to send the army down and surround everybody, protect them. But, the Lord's blessed me with a lot of things since I've turned my life around and got to know everybody and everything, I've got a better smile now. The Lord's blessed me with a boat. The Lord's blessed me with a truck, a better job, like all good stuff. The Lord's definitely blessed me beyond all recognition. I couldn't even imagine, and if I made that one mistake and failed, I already know what would happen. It'll all go away, and I'll probably never make it to the kingdom. The demons that I used to fight every day and knock them down in the last few years, I haven't really been fighting and keeping them away, and they're trying to come back. Lustful spirits coming at me hard lately. I've got drug spirits coming at me hard lately. These spirits are really wicked, and the thoughts that I have to fight off and whatnot. If it wasn't for y'all's prayers, I don't know, I can tell you that the body praying for me, it's working, you know. So don't stop praying for me, because yeah, don't stop. But it's good. The Lord's moving me in the right direction, and you know, I can only imagine what's going to happen after this.